Hotepu gatekeepers and our allies, this is His Royal Majesty Ra Sumabathagbemi, the world's first openly African black gay king. And the function of a king is to protect and feed his people. And today I do so through introducing to you a series of lectures that I will provide for those who are members of the Golden Beetle. When you sign up for membership, I will present more of these lectures on astrology, which is really the science of your spirit, of the subconscious mind. And on November 14th, 2016, at around 8:50 a.m., and today is November 3rd, 2016, so in about 2 weeks or so, we'll have the full moon, what I call the open eye full moon, occurring in the sign of the Ram of Aries. Where the full moon sits, the stars behind it determine the god of the month. And so this month, the full moon will be floating in the stars of the Ram of Aries. Therefore, it is the month of the Ram, we say. And the full moon tells you what emotions are trying to get perfected. What side of you is trying to get nourished and developed properly? So here we have the symbol of the Ram, Aries, the glyph here, and here's the Kemetic symbol for it, the Ram. And it shows a ram striding proudly with a winged cobra on his back, one upon his horns, and the goddess Ma'at here, the love of mathematics, ethics, and science. So let's talk about what is the Ram. What is Aries in you? Well, first of all, it's a sign, and a sign simply means a need in you, a longing in you. We all have a need for what the Ram represents. He's your need of this law and this science here. He is your need to survive and thrive. He's not just a force symbolizing surviving. He is your right to survive and thrive. You have a need to exist, a need to live, a need to survive and not let life take you out, not let others take you down. And not only to survive, but to live well, to thrive. So, when the Ram is strong in you, balanced in your subconscious mind, you fight. When someone breaks your boundaries, someone begins to infringe upon your rights, you fight. You don't lay down, you stand up, and you draw the line in the sand. So, in all of your charts, the sign of the Ram of Aries falls on a house. It could be the Ram on your first house, the Ram on your fifth house, the Ram on your eighth house. Doesn't matter where the Ram is. Whatever house or area of life he's overlaying, that means that area, you're supposed to fight for that. You're supposed to get up and fight so that area of your life can survive and then thrive. So if you have the Ram on your second house in your African Golden Beetle chart, only use our chart, not the tropical charts. That's what your ancestors are doing, not you. Our charts are sidereal, visual. So if you have the Ram on your second house, that means you're supposed to fight for your money to survive and thrive. If on your 10th house, house of career, you must fight for your right for your career to survive and thrive. So even if you're not the Ram rising or your sun in the Ram sign, everyone talking, everyone listening to what I'm saying here has the Ram somewhere. So this law, this science applies to that house. Now here we have two symbols of him. Here he's called Mahes or Mahus, the lion-headed man with the sun disk. Or here he's called Herokti or Harukhuti. These are two phases of the same energy, the same surviving, thriving impulse in you, of the Ram. And in Kemet, the ram was often shown as the god Amun, the god of cosmic consciousness and eternal peace, because a warrior must be very alert, very tuned in, like Amun, cosmic mind, and a warrior must be calm. You don't want a wild, crazy warrior, which we'll discuss in a few minutes, the kind of stages of growth of the warrior. So, if you've had your Seed of Life head reading with me, or if you've gone to Ifa and you've had your head reading from the Ifa system, and I have told you through my divinations that you are Mahus or Herkohuti or the war gods, or if Ifa has said you are Ogun, then this is your month. This is the month when you're supposed to really shine and master the science of surviving and thriving and fighting for what's right, fighting for what's good in the world, for this Ma'at figure here, for ethics and for balance. So, let's talk about the ram from the astrological point of view for a moment. Aries is ruled by the planet Mars, which you see here. Harukhuti, we call this planet Harukhuti, which means Heru means the higher one, Heru, of the two horizons, or the two flames of wisdom. The higher one who is of the double flames of wisdom. This means that this planet is your talent. It's really the science, your capacity to handle the science of surviving and thriving. How your Herodeshera Mars sits in your chart tells us, do you have a high IQ for surviving and thriving? Or are you a doormat? Do you lay down and take it? Let people walk all over you and beat you up and insult you? He is a hot and dry planet. Herodeshera is hot and dry. Hot means raises the energy. Dry means cuts connections. So, are you able to be energetic, hot, raise the vitality like a competitor or an athlete or performer? The heat's on. And are you able to cut connections, meaning not care so much if people like you or not? Not caring if people want to help you or not. You're going to cut off that connection of negative people and still do what you have to do. Okay? He rules the first house in the natural zodiac, the ram. The first house is the area of me, the self. Me, me, me. He sings, but it croaks. Me, me, me. Okay? Where he's about your survival. You have rights. You have, as this law says, everything in the forest has a right to survive and thrive for the well-being of the ecosystem. Everything in the forest has a right to survive and thrive, because it plays a role in the bigger ecosystem, the ma'at of it all. And very often, gay people have been told, we should not exist. That violates, absolutely violates, the stars of the ram. That we too have a right to survive and thrive. We are part of the ecosystem. We have a function in the bigger picture. And if someone says otherwise, then it's time to fight. Because now they're threatening your survival, your existence, and your thriving. So, this sign is what's called an electric sign or yang sign. It has a positive charge, meaning it's extroverted. It wants you to go out and do something. This is action-oriented. The Nike phrase, just do it. Its element is fire. Fire means experiencing the world through direct action. The elements are fields of experience. And the fire signs mean go out and do something that we can all see. Not in your head, not in your imagination, not in your thoughts, but that we can all actually witness. Because fire requires the eyes need light or fire to see, which is people seeing the proof of your actions. Its modality is called cardinal. Modality means the movement of its energy. Cardinal means explosive. It is going outward. So again, get up and move, do something. Stop sitting around the house, stop dreaming, stop daydreaming. Get up and take action. Produce that video, produce that book, produce that song, produce that dance, produce that painting. Do something. And it's considered what's called a personal sign. Personal meaning focusing on my person. Me, me, me. It's a selfish kind of sign. And the beauty of the zodiac as a mandala of initiation and completion, it's the first sign, the ram, which means you start with me. First, you have to be well. You've got to be secure. You have to be healthy. You have to be having a strong sense of self-awareness before you can help other people. So there is a time for me. It's 1/12 of your life should be me. The other 11/12 are between me, we, and thee. And this you can find in my astrology book, my Metaphysical Primer of the Astrology volume, which you can see, I forget which volume it is, but it's available on the King Ra Smaba webpage. So, the question is, do you have get up and go? Do you take action externally for your dreams? Do you defend yourself when you are wronged? When you're being violated, do you fight back? Do you take abuse? Or do you stop abuse? This is the sign of freedom. Harukhuti owns freedom. Because we must each have the freedom to be who we are, to fulfill our destinies. The freedom to be myself. Not to be like you or him or her or it, or what they say, but who you are. Okay? He owns things like your inner warrior. He's your inner warrior. He can be an impetuous child, a competitor, a pioneer, an opponent, a barbarian, an adventurer, an explorer. And he activates, when I teach parents how to raise their children, we go through the zodiac as a child rearing map between birth and 18 months. Okay? Where it's what's called primary narcissism stage, where the child is thinking only of himself. He doesn't care what you need, if you have to sleep or go to work, or if you're tired. If he's crying and wet, he's going to let you know, me, me, me. Okay? So he's your impulse to be, your impulse to express your independence, to be self-reliant. Are you self-reliant, or are you a user waiting for people to help you, handouts, sit-ins, protesting by sitting in? Is that what you are? He feels he's invincible, he's indomitable, and he's very willful and self-sufficient. Okay? He's kinetic. He likes to move. Fire likes to move and expand itself and keep consuming resources. So he's very energetic. Are you energetic? He's enthusiastic. When well, he's vigorous, he's vital, he's strong, he's spirited. Are you these things? Are you drained and worn out and beat up? He likes to start things. He's an initiator. He likes to do things in the beginning, to be the first in line. So he's pioneering. Are you pioneering? He's enterprising. How enterprising are you? He's decisive, quick, action-oriented. Are you decisive, quick, action-oriented? If you're answering no to a lot of my questions, it's simply a check engine light on your car of spirit saying, this part of you needs help. He needs fortification. He needs to be strengthened. And it's important that I make clear again this statement that he deals with me, 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 me. There's a time to deal with yourself. A lot of women have an issue with this, where they don't take care of themselves. Now, this is a male deity. It's very, as I have here, testosterone driven. So it favors males. But women have testosterone too, to a smaller level than males. And they have a right to be independent and to be free and to express themselves. Okay? So he's very straightforward. He's a sharpshooter. He's direct. He doesn't reflect very much. He just kind of acts. He leaps before he looks. He can be abrupt. He can be rude. He can be crass. He can be foul-mouthed. He can be a cussing sailor. Okay? He can be quite unrestrained and impetuous. Are you these things? He knows no fear. Partially because he's not really very sharp in what he's getting involved in. He's kind of childlike in his thinking. So when he jumps into something, he's not very aware what he's really signing up for, so therefore he's not fearful. Okay? So he's audacious, he's brave, he's daring, he's defiant, he's courageous. Yes? And he likes to go to war. Okay? Think of war in the sense of a newly hatched chicklet coming from out of an egg. That chicklet had to fight. He had to pound and hammer and crack and push and really exert himself to get out of that egg. So the best way to fight is to fight against your lower self so your higher self can be hatched. Okay? And when he's frustrated, he's very famous for becoming quite aggressive, quite intolerant to frustration. He can become quite angry because he thinks that frustration is a threat to his survival. If you block where he's trying to go, he's like a train. If you get in his way, he will view you as a threat and then ram right through you. That's why he's a ram. So he's quite egocentric, he's quite cocky. That's not a good trait of his. That's why we have Ma'at here with him, to teach him to be socially aware, not so egocentric, to balance him out. And he doesn't make a very good leader because he doesn't care if you follow him or not. As long as he starts something and he wins, if you like him or not, he could care less. So he makes a better initiator or pioneer than is a leader. That's more the lion of Leo. Okay? And he likes immediate gratification. He's not known for his patience. He's quite impatient. Are you impatient? Do you want immediate gratification? You see, I'm describing you, parts of your subconscious impulses. Okay? So the sign is the ram, which is the need to survive and thrive. The planet is the worker for that. The planet, Herdesher, is your talent to survive and thrive. Okay? It's your talent for the science of surviving and thriving. We all have the need equally, but based upon the planet and the chart, do you have the talent to pull off surviving and thriving? Or do you buckle? Do you fall apart? Do you become depressive and suicidal and start cutting yourself and beating yourself up and burning your weird things to harm your physical survival? It simply means there's a kind of dysfunctioning of the RAM energy. Okay? So that is the basics of Harukhuti, and he's key to Black history because, well, he owns all kinds of bullies and war. You see, and this is the month to review the Black history struggle, what we've gone through from accommodationism and Black nationalism and the protest movement, Black Lives Matter. It's a good time to review those things this month because it shows the history of our Harukhuti, of our Mahus, of our struggle. And he became powerful around the year 2400 BCE when we had the first official empire. Now, an empire is an aggregate of nations held subject by one foreign power. And this occurred with King Sargon I, the king of Akkad, in 2400 BCE. Okay? And you'll find that the white people are ruled by this planet, by this god. By looking at their history and behavior, they are a martial people. When you study their behavior with people of color historically, you study their myths, you study their ethics. Harukhuti likes things like violence, sex, and violence includes sports. Sports is a kind of violence for the most part. And he likes sex, violence, and sports, which are all things very Western, very European elements that they love to express. Whereas the Africans, Native Americans were much more into the Supreme Being. The Supreme Being is that which contains everything, therefore he unites everything. So the African history, Native American histories are more about working together with life, with nature. Not attacking nature so much, not attacking other people so much. Sure, there were skirmishes here and there over trade routes, but it was nowhere near the level of the European bloodlust, of extermination of groups of people, complete genocides. That didn't occur until the Aryans came down and began to dominate the peoples of color in the South. Okay? So you want to find out what a person, who they worship, what archetype they worship by where they pour their energy and money. And from video games to movies where people are shot up and Rambo and all these kinds of things, clearly Western people are a martial people. They have a nature, and it's martial. Okay? And oftentimes for them, for the European martial energy, peace is discussed, but it's a kind of strange peace to us. Meaning, peace is something that is achieved by having the greater power to either inflict violence, so I keep the peace because I can beat you, I'm a cop, I can keep the peace, or the balance of bullies, like mafia families, keeping kind of peace and balance amongst themselves. Okay? But that's a very unspiritual view of peace. It's very unspiritual. It's based upon violence and the capacity to wield it or not. Okay? So, when you go through the list I gave you earlier of traits, Harukhuti, you want to kind of go through that carefully and maybe score yourself. For example, I gave you a test saying, for example, do you like to burn the midnight oil? Do you hang in there on a project until it's finished? Are you upset when you're bored to death, doing nothing? Do you enjoy working hard and really going for something? Do you have a hot fuse, get angry, but it goes away quickly? You explode and it's over. Are you diplomatic or not so much? Are you too frank, too blunt with your friends and relatives? Tell them like it is, and this is how I am, this is how you are, and this is what should happen? Kind of bossy that way? Do you enjoy physical activities and exercise? When you're playing a game, do you play to win or just for the fun of it? How's your stamina? Is it good? When you were a kid, were you always fighting with people? Do you think you have to be forceful and loud and crass to get your way? Do you like to work hard, or are you lazy? Do you only respect your friends and coworkers who are hardworking? Do you hate people who are always thinking about the past and nostalgia of the good old days and not focusing on what can be in the future? When you don't like what your friends are saying, are you quick to say, I disagree with you, I don't like what you're saying? Do you prefer to go to a sports event and watch it, or to be in it? Do you prefer to go to a concert and enjoy it, or to be a performer? Is it hard for you to get discouraged? Do you have a foul, cussing mouth? Do you tend to put your thoughts into action quickly, your decisions quickly? When you are challenged and someone says no to you, does that fire you up to work 10 times harder? See, these are questions of the warrior index in you. Okay? So if you add up, if you give yourself a 1 for yes and a half point for no, and I gave you about 20 or so questions, 20, 21 questions or so. If you're above 15, my heavens to Betsy, you need to be calmed down. You need to really take on the initiations of this science of surviving and thriving. And perhaps you need the purple basil herbal bath. It's a bath that we can design for people based upon purple basil plant to calm down that energy, along with deep, deep breathing and dance movements that calm it down. Okay? And with these remedies, purple basil and certain sounds and movements, you can become very successful if we can channel this properly. Okay? If you're between 12 and 15, that's good. That's a good, healthy inner warrior. Okay? But make sure you don't drink too much coffee. It will stimulate you too much. If you're between 10 and 11 points, that's okay, but it's going on the low side, a kind of weak side. If you're lower than that, then you need help to strengthen your fight, to strengthen your gumption. And the bottom line point is around 8. You don't want to go lower than 8 points. Then you're really a doormat. So if you're under 8, we make a spiritual mix, a magical bath you take with a plant called Vencedor, Rumpe Saragüe, Rumpe Muralla. And these plants we add together with a few cactus needles and some thorns. You, of course, take that bath very carefully. You don't want to prick yourself. And we add a few gems to help you to get stronger. And in this bath, you chant certain sounds, and we help you get that index up to about 12 to 15. Okay? So you see what I'm doing is I'm looking at your inner warrior, Harukhuti Mahus, and we're able to measure him. We're able to measure how developed are you with this energy. You see? And the Western cultures have him way out of whack. They're way too emphasized of this energy. You don't want to emphasize him too much because he's a war god. He's a bloodlusting one. Okay? And if he's too crazy in your life, you have a certain kind of profile of illnesses like fevers, congestive accumulation of your blood, hemorrhaging, that kind of thing. You will have a weakened immune system. Okay? That's why unsafe sex is actually a sign of a weakened Harukhuti, because you're not thinking about your need to survive and thrive. You're doing something high risk that can threaten your physical survival. So a lot of the issues of unsafe sex, despite these cocktails they're making and these pills you can take, you don't want to have that disease. It's just a lot of suffering and pain and expense and discomfort. It's just not fun. So survive and thrive. And there have been campaigns over the years since the HIV/AIDS crisis in the 80s, kind of strategies of how to promote safe sex. In the 80s, it was very much more shock value, where you saw the consequences, you saw the sores, you saw the gaunt people, skin and bones, and it was a fear-based technique. And it worked. It really did save a lot of lives in the 80s. Now they've gone to a more vanilla Pollyanna, smiling, I'm on drugs, cocktails, therefore I'm living fine kind of thing. Okay, that hasn't really lowered the numbers too much. Okay, I have another solution. I have a scientific divine solution. By teaching the gay community to awaken their Mars talent, their talent for the science of surviving and thriving. When that's awakened, when you do the chants and rituals of a golden beetle ceremony or meditation, what it's doing is those hekau, those words of power, are increasing your instincts. So we chant certain sounds with certain herbal mixes and candles and colors, etc. As you're doing that, you're awakening a natural talent in you to survive and thrive. The West says that you either have a talent for something or you don't. We have a different view. You have all the talent. You're omnipotent. You have all the powers you need. But they're sleeping. Some are sleeping, some are half awake, some are fully awake. So the African golden beetle meditations, their target is to get them awake. So you won't need me telling you, don't bear back with some idiot you don't know, some person you don't know, some stranger. your instinct, your survival instinct, your inner warrior will say to you in your own head, don't do this. You'll get a vision, you get a strange feeling, something uncomfortable. Something will happen where you get an intuition or a vision or epiphany from within to not go there. You see? So this is my solution to that problem. Chant and do the meditations to this instinct. Okay? Now, the warrior in you, your inner warrior, your inner Mahush, your inner Harukhuti, goes through phases of development from primitive to advanced, from not very well integrated, kind of sloppy, to refined and perfected and elegant. Okay? So, for example, the ram his desire is survival, freedom, and autonomy. I'm going to read you a list of words from best to worst. Listen carefully. Some words will strike your ear, and write those words down. From best to worst, okay? From best emotions to worst emotions. When the ram is operating in you for good or worse. Joyful, excited, enthusiastic, bold, brave, eager, desirous, impatient, annoyed, irritable, angry, fierce, raging, discouraged, dispirited, timid, afraid, bored, dead. The first word was joyful, the last was dead. So it went from a scale of good to not so good. Did any of those words strike you? Which ones were they? That tells you on a continuum of a positive inner warrior to a negative inner warrior, from joyful to dead, where you're feeling you are. Your emotions are barometers of need satisfaction. When you need to be a fighter, you feel a certain way when you have that need come up. You feel joyous over it, you feel enthusiastic, or you feel timid or afraid. The feeling tells you how much balance or imbalance this need has in you. Okay? So we're going to wind down by just talking about some of the stages of development of this energy, from basic, from childlike to the advanced level. So the inner warrior starts out as a daredevil, a thrill seeker, like that movie Jack A. Okay, where he they on that show they do all kinds of crazy things and jumping off of things and eating weird things and hurting themselves. That's the most barbaric, primitive. It's like a thug, basically a bully, a daredevil or thrill seeker. When he's a little more trained, he becomes an adventurer. So the daredevil, thrill seeker, thug, which is the least positive form, gets a little more class. He becomes a warrior and an adventurer. He'll join the army, or he'll go on adventures that are productive and creative. When the warrior adventurer has more class, he becomes a leader or commander. Okay? Then, when he goes beyond that, he wants to step out of the system that he's leading and commanding in and become a pioneer and trailblazer. Okay? And then the ultimate of the inner warrior is the champion. He's a winner in an ethical way. He wins by playing fair and just. He's the hero. So we went from daredevil, thrill seeker, thug, to a warrior, a little better as a warrior adventurer. Then we improve ourselves, become a leader commander. We become even more daring by becoming a pioneer trailblazer for the good of the people. And then we become the hero champion of the people. Okay? So which are you? Are you the daredevil adventurer? Are you the warrior? I'm sorry, the daredevil thrill seeker? Are you the warrior adventurer? Are you the leader commander? Are you the pioneer trailblazer? Or are you the hero champion of the innocent and those who can't help themselves and of what is fair and just? Okay? Here we have an image of Mahus, a more dramatic image, one of my favorites, of the gay warrior Mahus calling his gay soldiers of lions to his side to go to battle against those forces that interfere with gay surviving and thriving. We must not allow people to bully us, neither financially, economically, socially, politically, academically. We won't be bullied. So as a gay tribe, we've got to stand up, unite as lions to lions, and go to war. If you're going to say we shouldn't survive and thrive, or God doesn't love us, or whatever you want to expectorate from your mouth, you better watch your mouth, because there's going to be a consequence. We're going to fight back and push back. Okay? And here are 3 images of Aries-Harukhuti, my beloved gay warriors. Here is a drag queen called Marsha P. Johnson. She was, in fact, the first person to throw the strike that ignited Stonewall. She was in Stonewall that night, the club in New York City, the bar, and she threw the first blow towards the cops and said, "No more. You will not keep doing this to us, raiding us and attacking us and brutalizing us." It was a black gay man in a dress who said, "No more," drew the line, and the warrior Aries-Harukhuti stood up in this brother and went to war, igniting an entire movement for the good of the people. Therefore, he became a hero champion. You see? Here we have 2 beautiful brothers in loving embrace, openly outside in the public, by the beach. This to me is Aries-Harukhuti, the boldness, the courage to be who we are, to be black, to be gay, to be sexual in public, and to stand up against the bullies and the haters and all of that. It's a beautiful image of the courage of love. And again, here we see, in a different scene, to me, 2 very courageous brothers. They're perhaps in a kind of hood area, and they're holding hands. What a great act of war. War against the hood, war against heterosecurity/homophobia, the courage to survive and thrive as who they are, 2 men in love. Brilliant. So these are 3 fantastic, inspiring scenes of Aries-Harukhuti, the inner gay warrior. We all have a warrior. It is time that you become the hero and champion of Ma'at, the ecosystem, and that everything has a right to survive and thrive in the forest. No other plant can tell the other plant you shouldn't exist in the forest. God doesn't love that plant. Well, I think the Supreme Being made the plant, and you better shut your mouth before we have a problem. Okay? So, I pray you enjoyed this small workshop on the sign of the Ram of Aries. We covered a lot. Review this video, go through the tests I gave you, the kind of questionnaire test to score yourself, and really think about what is the level of your inner warrior index. Are you a hero champion and no one's going to cross you without getting something coming back at them? Or are you a doormat? Are you the one that lays down and takes abuse and physical abuse and mental abuse and verbal abuse and political abuse and religious abuse? No. If so, we have the herbs, baths, and sounds to help bring up that fire and to say, you will go no more. Or as Gandalf said, you shall not pass. That mess shall not pass into my life. Long live Aries-Harukhuti. And I inspire all of my gay young men out there. Stand up. Take it to the court. Never be afraid to fight. Dwell and Hotepu.